Up there.
All right, so trying that again. So welcome to today's virtual support group. My name is Jillian Schultz. I'm the program director for the Parkinson Association of the Carolinas. And today's support group is for care partners. And we're so happy to have all of you here today. Support for care partners is such an important piece of living with and managing Parkinson's disease, and making sure that you are provided with resources um, and just what you need to be the best care partner that you can be. So I wanted to introduce our presenters today who are going to lead our workshop. So we have Monica Gross and Nina Reed with Poise. I was going to say Poise for Parkinson's is the program, with the Poise project. And so I'm going to turn it over to Monica right now, who's going to get us started.
Thanks, Jillian, and welcome to all of you. I know it's hard to sometimes stop and participate in something like this, even if it's just virtual, when you have so many responsibilities and concerns as a care partner. So I will just say, my name is Monica Gross. I live in Western North Carolina. I am executive director of a nonprofit called the Poise Project. Nina Reed is a colleague of mine. She's also on our board of directors, and she is a peer trained instructor in our Partnering with Poise course, which is a very specific course that we've developed and researched and are teaching both in person and online, that uses something called Alexander technique, or adapt something called Alexander technique to help support care partners in all of the many physical and emotional challenges that caregiving brings into daily life. And Alexander technique, I'll just introduce very quickly, is something that's very well known in the performing arts. My background is theater. I have a BFA from the UNC North Carolina School of the Arts in Winston-Salem. And it was part of my theater training. And Alexander Technique training is really a set of principles which help you manage yourself in stressful circumstances, which, as you can imagine, for performing artists, like performance anxiety, heavy discipline for practice, physical issues that might lead to strain or pain. The Alexander training has been very helpful. So what we've been doing with our nonprofit is adapting those principles and placing them into a curriculum that might be useful specifically for care partners. And I'll also briefly say that I was a care partner for my mother who had Alzheimer's disease. I managed her care a bit at a distance. I was in New York City. She was in Pennsylvania. I was going back and forth and helped manage her care through over 12 years, all the way from living at home all the way through hospice. Nina, would you like to share a little bit about your caregiving experience?
Sure. So I was a teacher. Moved. I'm from New York City. I moved to North Carolina after my father died, and it became clear that my mother needed to have someone else in the home. And I ended up stopping teaching in December of 2020 to be home with her full time. And I cared for her for 4 years until she passed away. In April of 2021 or so, I heard about this thing called the Poise Project, um, and partnering with Poise, which was the caregiver course. And so I said, oh, I want to try this. I took the course. It was so useful to me managing my journey as a caregiver that when I had some free time again, I told Monica, I want to help you get this to more people because I felt like it could do so much good to just help people navigate a very difficult time of life with dignity and grace. And so that's how we ended up here.
Yeah, and so we're very committed to bringing these programmings to people in our region, particularly North Carolina, South Carolina, through Parkinson's Association of the Carolinas. The Poise Project also developed, with funding from the Parkinson's Foundation, another course which is specifically for people living with Parkinson's. and their families together to manage the more the physical aspects, the motor issues of Parkinson's. But today we're going to be offering you a taste of how partnering with Poise is introduced to care partners, how it might be of value to care partners, and what you might experience in this course. So I'll introduce it by saying that what you'll be having here today is not a webinar. It is what you might call embodied learning. In other words, experiential learning. Something that you can try out and do, and then see how it affects you and share your observations with others. A big deal of Alexander training is self-observation. What happens when you think about some of the Alexander principles and bring them into a daily experience? The Alexander training is meant to be used specifically in daily life. It's not something like mindfulness or exercise or meditation or Tai Chi that you set time aside to practice. It's actually a training of ways of thinking that can become very embodied in your daily life. So they start to impact how you go about your day and how you approach different situations and how you react to certain situations. Okay. So what I'll invite people to do is now I'd like to introduce a little discussion. And if you like, please unmute yourself, turn on your cameras if you're comfortable with that so we can have a conversation. And you can always unmute, mute, turn off your camera, turn on your camera at any point while we're working, okay? But I would invite people now to unmute yourselves and turn on your cameras so that we can sort of feel as if we're in a room together having a conversation. And what I'll introduce is I'll start a discussion by saying, when you hear the word poise, P-O-I-S-E, when you hear the word poise, what do you think? What does that make you think of? What qualities does it make you think of?
It's almost like a hi, I'm Althea, I'm sorry. And
Welcome,
I
Althea.
apologize for being late. But it's almost like when you're reading a book and you see someone that is poised to do something, that they're
Mm.
ready to do it, that they're active, but they also have the ability to do it. They have a characteristic that exhibits itself in how they present themselves to other people.
That's a lot of things. I see that it's something visible, it's something tangible, but it's not just physical. It's also that they have this sense of readiness, that they're ready for something, and that it's a quality. Someone else. Thank you, Althea.
You're welcome.
This is Christine. I think they also are confident
Mm.
and self-aware and give the appearance of being together.
Okay, so this sense of the person with poise, having confidence, being together, being focused in that way, and that it's again kind of visible, something that you can or sense that you can sense from the person. Thanks, Christine. Someone else? Other qualities, Bob? Whoop. Somehow you're still muted. Maybe it's a thing between your microphone and your headphone. If you choose headphone on your Zoom audio menu, then it might come through. While Bob's doing that, Ellen, did you have something to share?
I would think that you're just kind of ready, emotionally to step into that role or forward into whatever it is that you're taking on. Hopefully you've prepared yourself enough to, which is what I'm trying to do for the future down the road of what's coming. Be prepared.
So there's this sense of preparation, of feeling confident that you're ready to take on whatever that challenge might be. Bob, did it sort out about your headphones?
I think so.
Yes.
I was thinking grace under pressure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Would we agree with that? Grace
Yes.
under pressure. That term grace, poise, they're ineffable words and very poetic, but they're human. Someone else, one more person, another insight into poise of something that people might not have shared yet.
I tend to think of a person who just has this like aura of just kind of knowing what to do, being prepared, going into things. I mean, we've said confident and things like that, but kind of exude that energy.
Right. So it's not just that they have it, it's that it's apparent to all around them that if there was an emergency, that would be the person you might want in the room with you because they had that poise. So the next thing would be when you think of, can you think of someone who you feel represents poise to you? Someone who has poise. Now it could be someone you know personally, or it could be someone famous.
Well, I would think of Jacqueline Kennedy and Princess Diana. Very strong women.
Mm.
And it's not that men don't have it. It seems more like a physical characteristics for women. For a man, I don't, the term I'm trying to come up with is, I can almost see it. If I was looking at an actor, I would think George Clooney.
Okay.
He has that. Robert Redford, when he was playing some of the movies where he was the gentleman and all of those things. But they have that dress, that magnetism that says, you can trust me. You can believe that I'm going to be there. I have that. I have something different than everybody else.
All right, there's a sense of trust. Perhaps it's ethical. It's something that they have earned in a way that makes you confident in their abilities and in how they would behave in a situation. Someone else, another person that might represent poise to you.
I would think Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama.
Mm-hmm. Those names come up very frequently. I think there's something, particularly in the case with the women that Althea and Janice mentioned, that these are people who are subjected to a lot of stimulus and a lot of scrutiny, right? Think about what
Yes.
Jackie Kennedy went through, and that they weathered that with poise. I think we can say they moved through very challenging settings and situations with their dignity and their psychological, physiological poise that they brought to it. So I think what we can say is that poise isn't just physical, it isn't just emotional or spiritual, but it's sort of a quality that someone can have, which embodies many different things, and it is recognizable. We have a sense of it when we're around it. So we call our class Partnering with Poise because poise is something that can help us as care partners to weather these very stimulating, very challenging life situations, which we didn't necessarily sign up for. I don't think Jackie Kennedy signed up for the things that happened in her life. And probably Michelle Obama, when she first married Barack, wasn't anticipating where that might lead her. So the Poise Project, we use that word poise, because our mission is to help people maintain poise, dignity, and personal growth throughout all stages and challenges of life by using these principles that we recognize as the Alexander principles that we try to share in our courses. And so the goals that we have with this course is to develop a stronger sense of something we would call personal agency. Would there be anyone present who has a sense of what that term agency means in this context, personal agency? It's not a common term in daily life, but in the social sciences, in social workers talk about it, anthropologists, it's something that lets you have agency, meaning that you have the right to choose what happens to you in your life, both physically, emotionally, and that you have the right to make choices in your life, that's your agency, your ability to control what happens to you and to create boundaries. Now, these are things that are taught to children now in schools physically, to have a physical boundary and to know what that means and to be able to say no. So personal agency for a caregiver can be very amorphous because we do take on these responsibilities, but and we feel accountable for that, but we also have our own needs and our own life, our own presence. And sometimes that can be very conflicting. So in research, what they've found is that care partners are very vulnerable to a health risk called loss of self or role engulfment. And it's pretty much what it sounds like, that the longer you're in that role, the more you become that role and you lose your sense of yourself in your other life roles. And you become engulfed in this role of caregiving. And you lose that essential self. Now, what you guys noticed about poise earlier was that when somebody has poise, people feel better around them. They feel they could trust it, that these people are prepared, that there's a sense of confidence they bring into the space. So a care partner with that quality of poise can unconsciously impact the person they're caring for in ways that aren't just how you're going about your caring for that person physically, emotionally, managing their schedules, taking care of the daily needs, food, transport, all of those things. There's also this quality that gets very challenged, particularly if there are long-term care needs that are very debilitating for the person giving that care, and particularly if there's cognitive issues. So personal agency is described as your ability to act on your own behalf and make choices that maintain your individuality and your sense of self as a whole person with dignity and integrity. And so in our courses, we are encouraging care partners to strengthen their sense of personal agency and feeling more in control of yourself and of your actions, knowing that you have personal choice in what happens to you and what you do, and knowing that your needs matter equally with the needs of the person that you care for, are all very fundamental to your ability to have a greater meaning and satisfaction in your daily life, even as you are also being a care partner. So what I'm going to do now, and this is always accessible for anyone who's interested or willing, is I'd like to lead you through some activities that we might do in an early Alexander for Care Partners class. And to be clear, our full class Partnering with Poise meets 12 times for 2 hours each time, once a week. So it's a 24-hour course, and it goes through a lot of different stages. But this would just be a taste of where we might begin to start thinking about embodying the sense of yourself. It's one thing to say, I have agency, and it's another to experience that wholly, physiologically, in real time, right? And that's something that we try to build up and give the opportunity for people to have an experience of, because embodied learning in that way doesn't go away. When you've learned something in an embodied way, you might not remember that you know it, but you're never going to forget it when you do remember it. It is something that stays with you in a very deep way. So the learning outcomes that we'd like for our classes are we'd like to develop what we call first person expertise. And first person expertise is just what you might think that you, let's say I see a number of people, I'm going to just choose Mark Nelson. I see a name there, that Mark Nelson is the only person who can be the first person expert for Mark Nelson. He's the expert. And being a first person expert, as we go through our lives, we can improve. We can become better and better at being our own first person expert. And the Alexander training sometimes can help in that, can help support your own ability to be confident and clear, and also open to new experiences and transitions and changes with these principles as you go through your first person experience, particularly now as a care partner. So there are 4 main things that we hope the classes help with. One is to avoid injury. We don't want care partners to get injured as they are going about the moving and the physical activity that they might have to go through in order to be a care partner. We want them to be able to better manage stressful circumstances, stressful stimuli. We want them to gain long-term skills, skills that, as I said, that are embodied, that are going to last beyond the end of that training course and for the rest of their lives. And we would like them to be able to better meet, therefore, life's challenges at any stage, not just as a care partner, but any challenge. I'm sure that what is happening now with Parkinson's, because you as a care partner are living with Parkinson's too, that is not the first challenge you've had in your life. You've weathered many challenges, I'm sure. Some of them lighter, some of them heavier. So this is another challenge, and the AT principles can help move with that challenge and still have a strong and confident sense of self. So if you would like, if you're willing and able, what you can do is you can either have your video on or off, but I'm going to invite you to participate in the following activity. When we learn things experientially, we learn them in different ways. In other words, if I held up a picture or I did a PowerPoint, that's one way of learning, right? You're looking at the image, you're reading the words. If I describe something like I've been describing something, that's another way of learning. You're hearing it. If I show you, if I want to teach you about your feet and I show you a model, a 3-dimensional model, that's another way of learning. And if you say out loud what you're learning, if you describe it to yourself, that's another way of imprinting it. So what we're going to do is these 5 different ways of imprinting something. And the thing that you're going to be imprinting is something we call our first theme. Each of our 12 classes has a theme, and they all relate to the word I. And those themes get attached to some of this embodied learning so that when you're in a situation in real life, because that's the only purpose of studying Alexander is to use it in real life. If you find yourself in a situation in real life, perhaps you'll remember this little moment where you were able to have this theme and bring it forth again for yourself in that moment in daily life where you might need it. So you don't, if you like, turn away from me. If your video is on, you can stand up. I would recommend standing up. I'll stand up to read these. And just turning away from me, be in your space as if all you're doing is hearing my voice and you're experiencing yourself as if you were alone right now in your home.
Recording in progress.
And what
Hold on.
that's Althea maybe, yeah. You want to
I
turn
know.
on, mute yourself. Thank you. Okay, good. So I'm going to say this little theme. It's just 2 words, but they're very profound in a way when we think about them in relation to ourselves. So first, you're just going to listen to me say the words a few times, just listening. That's one way of imprinting. Then you're just going to think the words in your own mind to yourself. That's another way of being private and imprinting something and having an experience of that. The third is you're going to just say the words quietly out loud to yourself. So you can have your audio on or off if you're uncomfortable. People, you might hear other voices, but this is about your experience of saying these words out loud quietly to yourself, about yourself. And then the fourth way is to say them out loud like it's a statement about yourself. And then we'll do one more after those, which will be a fifth way. But I'll just go through these first four. So first of all, just listen to me saying these words. I am. I am. I am. And now I invite you just to think those words a few times to yourself in your own mind about yourself. And then just try saying them quietly out loud to yourself in the privacy of your home with no one listening, just this saying these words. Is that different when you say them out loud? I am. I am. And now I invite you to say those words, those simple words out loud one more time, but this more like a statement of fact, a strong statement. And now, if you like, you can turn on your video. You don't have to, or you can just choose one of the people whose names appears. And I want you to say those words to someone. For instance, the person might not know who you're saying it to, but I'm looking at someone and I'm saying, I am. You can try that. And again, this is just
I am.
right or wrong about this. Just what happens to us physiologically when we say those words, the first person infinitive.
I
And then one last time, sometimes there is this imprinting that happens when we're more aware of ourselves tactily. So I'll invite you one more time to try this one more time. Just place your hand on your own heart or on your chest. Again, don't look at me. And now looking away from the whole, the whole video, the whole digital world there, just say the words again quietly to yourself a few times with your hand there, or both hands there. I am. So you can turn your audio on and or your video on. And I just wanted to ask, of those, I guess we did 6 different ways: listening, thinking, saying it quietly, saying it like a statement, saying it to someone else, and then saying it while also having a hand on your own chest. Which of those 6 ways did you prefer? So how many people, and the people who are who haven't turned on their audio, if you'd like to just use your reaction thing by raising a hand, how many people prefer just listening to the words? How many people preferred thinking the words to themselves, just thinking the words to themselves? Jillian did. Okay, maybe others did. And how many people preferred saying them quietly out loud to yourself? Okay. Ellen and Nina. Okay. And maybe others. And how many people preferred saying it like a kind of a statement, I am? How many people preferred that? Oh, love. Yes. Okay. That was popular. Good. Okay. And how many people preferred saying it to someone else? And finally, how many people preferred saying it while you also had your hand on your heart or your chest? Okay. Yeah. So you can see that everyone's a little bit different. What works, what one person prefers is what you should pay attention to. That's becoming a first person expert. What works for you? What you prefer, because it's more likely that you might actually use that then in daily life. And the next question, of course, would be, how did you know that that's what you preferred? It's an interesting question. What told you inside yourself that you preferred that? Jillian? Any ideas?
For me, it's just comfort. I don't like to necessarily express things outwardly, but if I'm thinking it to myself, I'm still getting it, but I don't have that outward expression.
Did anyone else feel that way, that it was easier when you weren't visible in that way, that it was more of an internal thing and it was more comfortable? Because then I would say to Jillian, what let you know that was comfortable in yourself? Or more importantly, what let you know something else was uncomfortable? You know, something we can think about. Can we pay attention to those maybe physiological or thoughtful responses that we have to certain situations or certain actions that we take? And I would also say that sometimes care partners do need to use their voice, and that it can be a source of discomfort and a lack of confidence. And that's why in our courses, we experiment with, why is that difficult for me? And can I see myself in a situation where I might have to kind of be that self who says, I am right now, either because it's something to help the person you're caring for or to take care of yourself or for other reasons. And it is important sometimes for us to, as care partners, to use our voices for our own well-being and for perhaps the well-being of the person we're caring for, if we're in a situation where we have to kind of represent for them when they can't for themselves. Sometimes it's easier to represent for someone else than for our own needs, right? So any other responses to that little activity that we just did? Someone who might not have shared yet. Susan?
Excuse me, did you ask me a question?
Yeah, did you have any other responses to the activity yourself? Anything at all?
No, I typically, when I'm saying something and doing something that's of a comfort to myself, just putting my hand on my heart is what I typically do. And I do a lot of calm meditation, and some of that has similar things. I am worthy, I am, whatever the different words that you say. So I'm used to that. So that's kind of what I gravitate to.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's some aspect of that they call like a mantra or an affirmation. And what we try to do with the language in the Alexander classes is that it's actually an experience. It's something that, because conjures up a whole person, our whole self, all those things we mentioned about poise. And so we're interested in how we can embody ourselves in many different situations, even under the pressures of being a caregiver. So I'd like to
I have a comment.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Comment.
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't have a camera.
It's you have an
I find it
avatar.
writing, yes, writing what I'm feeling is powerful. Would that be a sixth way of imprinting, or is that kind of letting it out of myself?
It would definitely be a sixth way, a seventh way, I think. Yes. And can you imagine if you had your hand here and were writing those words? Would that make a difference? So can we connect our whole self to that act of writing too? In fact, I was going to encourage people during the workshop today to have a piece of paper to take notes. And also, if you have a response to any of these activities, to put them in the chat, because we might not be sharing, have time for everyone to share. All right. I'd like to do one more activity now. And this one does involve being up and moving. So if you would like to participate in the activity, I'd like you, again, and you don't have to have your video on, but to stand up and move away so I don't have to see you, but you would want to hear my voice. So what I'm going to do is you'll be walking, and then I'm going to give you a little prompt, okay? And you'll sense your reaction to that prompt, and then I'll encourage you to walk again. I'll give that prompt a few times. We'll take a break, and then we'll do the same thing again with a different prompt and see if there's any difference between those two for you. And there may or may not be, okay? So if you will, if you're up, I'd like you to please begin just walking in your space. So you're walking, and I'm going to say the word stop. Begin walking again, please. Stop and observe if there's any tension in yourself when you stopped. And walking one more time. Stop and notice your heart rate if there's any observation of that. Begin walking again, if you will. Stop and observe your breathing. Is there any change in your breathing after that prompt? And one more time, walking. Stop. And what's your visual focus? What are you seeing right now? Where's your, how narrow or wide is your vision? Okay, now shake that off, let that go, and we'll try a different way, okay? So once again, please begin walking. And I'm going to give you a different prompt. Pause, P-A-U-S-E, pause. And now begin walking again. Pause. And notice your tension, if there's any tension. Continue walking again. Pause. And you can observe your heart rate. And begin walking again. Pause. Observe your breathing. And continue walking again. Pause. And this time, where is your visual focus? Okay. So we're going to flow into the last activity of this, which is now what you're going to do is when I tell you to walk, you'll be walking. And then the prompt I'm going to give you is Alexander says, because like Alexander technique, Alexander says, choose, C-H-O-O-S-E. And at that moment, you can decide whether you want to give yourself your own prompt pause, stop, or continue walking. So again, I'll say Alexander says choose, And you choose for yourself whether you're going to pause, stop, or continue walking. It's very, very simple. And we'll do it a number of times, so you'll have a lot of different opportunities to choose. Okay? Any questions? Okay. So if you'd like to participate, please begin walking. And Alexander says choose. And you can choose to pause, stop, or continue walking. And as you're walking, again, Alexander says choose. And once again, as you're walking, Alexander says choose. And as you're walking again, Alexander says choose. And one more time as you're walking, Alexander says choose. Okay. And one more time, as you're walking, Alexander says choose. Okay. So you can come back and turn your video on or your audio on if you'd like to participate in conversation. But I'm just curious, ask yourself, how many times did you choose stop? It was one time, 2 times, more than 2 times. How many times did you choose pause? Again, once, twice, 3 times, more. And how many times did you choose continue walking? So could anyone share which one they preferred or which one they chose most often?
I always
I
choose
continue
continue to walking.
Continue walking. That's very popular with care partners. There's something about, movement in itself that might be pleasurable. Do you know why you chose it? The people who chose that? Why you preferred it?
I like mindful walking, so I was just practicing that.
Okay, someone else? Someone else who had a different choice? And you might want to think, what choice was the most pleasurable or enjoyable? Susan expressed that it was continue walking. What was the most pleasurable choice for you? You might want to think about that. Which choice do you think let you refresh your I am, your sense of self? And which one during your daily life might give you the space to refresh that I am, that sense of self? Which of those 3? Pause, stop, or continue walking?
I like making the choice myself, doing what I wanted to do instead of what I was being told to do.
So Christine has put her finger on the exact embodied learning of this activity, which is, can we say that what we actually preferred in that activity was choice, choosing?
Mm-hmm.
That's what gave us some pleasure, having choices and having the agency to make those choices. So even something that simple, can we allow ourselves that during our daily life? That in a given moment, perhaps pausing, because pausing can be very, as we have little AT tips and tricks that kind of are earworms that help you remember some of the embodied learning in the classes, but pausing can be very pausative in our lives. That if we simply pause, it's not like an abrupt stop. It's something a little softer, a little smoother, a little more open, where we haven't given up our movement. we're just pausing inside that mood. We haven't given up the ability to take another step. And sometimes as care partners, we don't have those slight pauses during our day where we can make a choice. We don't, you have to have that pause to even entertain choice. So although this was a kind of simple activity, it is something that you might want to think about or drop in a little bit into your daily life. So we have a few more minutes. I'm going to do one more activity, okay, which is a little bit more that we would do a little bit later in the course. And it is about choosing this pause and choosing to kind of what we might say refresh your I am. I'm refreshing my I am. I'm aware of my I am, right? I am here. So the way it's a little game or activity where someone's going to call out my name. Everyone can. You're all going to call out my name. Monica, try to get my attention. You know, you can be as insistent as you like. And I'm going to go through a little process of I'm going to say, I'm choosing to pause. I'm choosing to exhale a little bit, to breathe out, which is a very calming activity. We're often told to take a deep breath, but actually in terms of our nervous system, the exhale is the calming, resting state of breathing. If you fully exhale, wonderful fresh air comes in. When you exhale, the stale air goes out. We calm, and we don't have to worry about taking that next breath. It comes to us, the fresh air. So I'm going, as within all of that calling out, I'm going to just say I'm choosing to pause. I'm exhaling. I'm refreshing my I am. And then I might say, yes, Susan, what is it? What do you want? Okay. So let's try that. If everyone wouldn't join in and just start calling out my name, Monica.
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 I'm going to
Monica,
pause.
Monica,
Monica.
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 I'm Diane. Yes, everyone. Can I
Monica.
help you? What? Questions?
Hi.
Hi, Nina. All right. Someone like to volunteer to be the person whose name is called? Someone else. Christine, I'm choosing you. Is that okay? You want to do it,
That's fine.
Christine? Okay. So everyone, let's go after Christine here. Christine.
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 Christine, can you hear me? Is your audio on? Christine.
I can, yep.
Oh,
Oh.
I got her. Snap. Okay, so during this, as we're calling out your name, just say it to yourself, say it out loud quietly to yourself. I'm choosing to pause, I'm exhaling, I am, and then you can repause. Okay, Mark, you want to try it out? Should we call out your name?
Sure.
Okay, let's go after Mark now. Ready? Mark.
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 Mark,
Mark.
Mark.
Yeah.
Mark.
Oh, Mark.
Okay. Were you able to do a little pausing and I aming there for yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, how was that?
That's good.
You think it's something you could does anyone see any practical applications of what we just did in this activity in your daily life? Yeah. Okay. So we do need to be available and on call as a care partner, but we also need to have our I am in the room, because who is helping is a really important question. And if we start to lose that the physiological whole person presence of that I with your history and a future beyond that present moment, it can be very exhausting, very draining. And I think those little pauses, those little refreshing of I am, is actually helpful for the person you're caring for as well. To give that little bit of space, and to perhaps also offer them the ability to have their own separate self. because sometimes we can overcare too. So I'll just close with a little cool down. And so if you will, just turn away from me. You can do this standing or sitting. And I'll just talk you through. There's something we call stillness stance. All it is you're going to place one hand on your heart and let your other arm swing around to give yourself a little hug if that's comfortable, or you can put your hand wherever you like if you have any shoulder issues. And then looking up and out, you can close your eyes and then think or say to yourself quietly, I am, and just be still. Sometimes we don't just be still for a little bit. So this is a stillness stance, thinking or saying to yourself, I am, as you exhale and inhale.
I need to head out. I'm sorry to exit.
Thank you, Susan. And then finally, we do something which is good for kids to have the boundaries, the agency. It's called a little zip up. All it is, and you can do this any way you like or not at all. It's as if you had a zipper in front of your torso. And I'll just demonstrate first, don't do it yet. As if I was zipping up, and as I zipped up, I can say to myself or think to myself, I am, I have integrity, I have agency. So you're taking with you any of the little embodied experiences that you had in class today. So once again, the zip up, think or say to yourself as you're making that movement, however you like, you can do it touching yourself or in front of yourself or very tiny. I am, I have integrity, I have agency. And then we have just a few minutes left. If anyone would like to share a quiet takeaway, one thing that sticks for you from today's class, we call it spaghetti on the wall. It's like if you throw a noodle when it's done on the wall and it sticks. So what stuck for you today from this little experiential taste of poise? And you can put that in the chat, or you can just share it, unmute yourself and just share those words. Anything at all.
I think it's important to give yourself some of that space. That's the pausing. It's good for yourself. It's good for the person that you're caring for. When we were doing the thing, I could see it with my kids constantly yelling, mom, mom, mom. It's the same kind of thing, taking a breath before you answer them.
Yeah, and even more importantly, having that exhale first, like exhaling. Yeah, darling, children, right? Yeah, so yeah, Mark.
Just relax. Just a time to relax.
That little moment. If we let ourselves have a little bit, the exhale is like that. It's a tiny rest over and over all day long, so that maybe you won't feel exhausted as much at the end of the day. If we take these tiny little cycles of rest and then alertness again. Thank you. Someone else a takeaway.
Every time, and I've done it as a student and then as a teacher, every time we do the name calling exercise, I'm always struck with the reminder that you always have that moment to choose how you respond to that stimulus. And we're conditioned, somebody's calling me, I have to go now. And it's empowering to know that you don't actually have to go right now all the time. It might actually be an emergency, but if it's not, you can take a moment. And even if it is an emergency, that little breath gives you time to prepare yourself for whatever is going to happen next so that you're responding and not just reacting.
Which is what people were talking about poise in the beginning, the sense of someone who's really prepared for something. Yeah. Someone else, another takeaway. And did we put in the chat for everyone? Let's see if, yeah, I'm going to put that in there. That is contact information. Do people see it? Or it's something I think that Jillian will send out when she sends out the recording for people who couldn't be here or stay. But again, this might seem very simplistic. We do a lot of work also with learning more about ourselves physically, like how to organize ourselves and move with more ease and less and better mechanics so that we're not going to injure ourselves. So it's a whole process. And then also about how to be aware of our environment and the other person without losing ourselves. That's kind of a big part of Poise. And so I'm very grateful for you taking the time to participate today. Feel free to contact me or Nina, and we'll let people know when we run our next full classes. Are there any other takeaways or questions for us?
Well, thank you so much, Monica. Thank you, Nina. I will make sure to send out the contact information and the recording from today's session later this week. And please save the date for next Wednesday. We do have a Medicare 101 webinar. So whether you need a refresher or it's your first time enrolling in Medicare, definitely will be a good session to attend. Information for that is on our website. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out anytime. I wish everybody, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just say one last thing that what we talk about, Nina and I, with the AT is that they're like little tiny drops during your day. And you know that if something drops long enough, it'll create a nice pool and something flowing in your life. So we encourage these first 2 drops, which are to drop in I am, to drop in a pause anytime during your day. So thank you. Thanks for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a
Take care.
wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.